Live stream, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Bumpy McSquigums, joined by Cupogoodness, a tiny disaster. We are the Indie Brothers, and today we're going into our game industry discussions on your Steam page from Steamworks to launch. It's kind of a part 2 to our optimizing your Steam store page, and yeah, that's kind of our topic so far and what we're planning on going with. Hello, Tiny Disaster and Cupogoodness. How are you guys doing?
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
All right, where would you like to begin, good sire? As you are the veteran of the Steamworks pages, I suppose you could say.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm just hitting the retweet and the like button on our new social post, and then let's get into it. So we're talking about Steam store pages, releases, Steamworks, all that kind of stuff. Steamworks, for those who don't know, is like the back end essentially of Steam. Are we still on our title card? Are we moving over? Okay, cool. Okay, I was like having a weird existential crisis with that. Sorry,
okay.
Apologies.
He couldn't see the talking heads. He was freaked out.
We're all good. I was like, where am I? Where am I? There I am. I think it was about a month or so ago, probably longer than that, maybe 2 months now, when we talked about. I believe the exact topic was getting your Steam store page ready for launch, or possibly, ready for coming soon launch. I can't remember exactly.
I think we mostly talked about early access, but I don't remember what we called it before we talked about early access.
It was all kind of pre-release stuff to get ready for launch, I believe, is what the idea was there. So we had that, and we went over.
Are you talking about the first time we did a Steam optimization page thing?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, it was basically getting everything ready and what you should do when you actually launch your page. Not even necessarily when you launch your game. So
right,
all the stuff you need and how to build your page. Okay.
Right, and so we're not going to go over today like some of that basic stuff we talked about then in terms of descriptions, trailers, screenshots, things of that sort. We talked about that then. We'll probably go over it at some other time down the road. But until then, today was more about talking about some of the other options and features, etc., that you can use as a developer via the Steamworks kind of suite, which is again how you get your game set up and then released on Steam. So to start, I want to kind of just go over a couple of the store page sections that are a little lesser known, right? Everybody knows, or if you know Steam, then you already know about probably. I can see a short description up top with a small banner that gives me, like a nice hero art or hero image or kind of box art.
We'll go with the Cook Serve Delicious page for you.
That's great because that's what I'm looking at right now too. Obviously the trailer section up top and then the screenshot carousel with the trailers. You scroll down a little bit, and there's a few other sections that I wanted to kind of talk about that actually have ahead of about this game. So it's sandwiched between the kind of like top, really, really, really important stuff, right? Most people are going to be looking at trailers and screenshots and box art and making judgment calls off of that. And then a very small percentage of those people that kind of are willing to continue on will start reading text and start considering a little bit further. So some of those areas that you can add to kind of grab the eye is the special announcement section. This is where you see the Giant Bomb Game of the Year, the Game Maker Awards Best Game, and our Discord link. Join our Discord channel. This is a great section. This is called Special Announcements, and you don't even have to activate the section if you don't want to. But by activating it, you can basically call it whatever you want. As you can see, the titles of the the sections are like not special announcement, but Giant Bomb Game of the Year, Game Maker Awards Best Game. Join our Discord channel.
And so I think the thing to point out, as you mentioned this before, is this is not activated automatically. So if you want to activate it, you have to go and manually do so.
Correct. That's in Steamworks in your Steam store page setup when you're like in the description section, and you'll find that special announcements area. It's just kind of a simple area that you could add to, and it's very customizable. As you can see, it's not here, but you could put text there. Of course, we opted for banners that we thought were kind of catchy, would hook quickly, would disseminate the information fairly quickly without having to just read regular text, essentially. So that's a great area, obviously, to push people towards your socials, your Discord, if you have one. The idea is we've talked about this before, is that you're trying to feed your Steam Store page should be feeding towards your socials, and your socials should be feeding towards your Steam Store page. It's kind of this nice cycle that should be happening. And so having that kind of call to action as in the main part of your page is really, I think, pretty important. Above that, you have the review section. And when I say reviews, I don't mean Steam Store page user reviews. I mean like official reviews. But they don't have to be like official 9 out of 10 Metacritic reviews to post that here. That's kind of
yeah, rock paper shotgun here. It doesn't give you a numbered review, right? So
yeah, and if a YouTuber said something like a really nice sentence, and that's all we had, then we would use that YouTuber's. I mean, obviously, I personally would request the YouTuber if it would be okay for us to use the quote from the YouTuber, and if they said all right, go for it, because we know that they have at least a name in the niche department that we're focused on, if not like a bigger name in gaming, then we could share that there. And it might not be a review. It might just be like, this game is bleeding awesome. You know what I mean? Like, and I've seen parody things where it was like, this game's pretty good. 4 people at a convention. It's like, that was the review. Like, that was their post. So it doesn't have to be anything really official. You can kind of be like funny with it. I wouldn't go there unless you have something really clever, though. Other than that, use this in the coming soon period as well, right? Use this in the pre-release period. You should, if someone, again, like a content creator, like a streamer or a YouTuber, covers the game early and it's not in a review state yet, but still says something nice, you could add that to this section. Again, reviews is a bit of a misnomer. It's more just like
well, it's still a review.
Critical,
right?
Yeah, it's critical acclaim, right? It's
Yeah.
like, because it could be considered, that's a preview, that's an impression, etc. Like, and that's what I mean. It's not. I think some people have in their head that review means this very specific thing.
Oh, it breaks the whole game down, everything else. I got you.
And it's like a final thing and all that kind of stuff. But as a developer, you don't need to say, oh, I can't do this because it's not a final review. You should actually be thinking, no, anytime I get some critical reception that is either from a source that is trusted, established, and or very popular, it's important to think about adding that to your store page to get like kind of to legitimize your game a little bit more to people that are just passing through. And then you could put up to like, I think 4, 5, 6, but I think 3 is the sweet spot. You're not trying to give too much here. Like brevity is kind of important. And so we have this thing like with Cook Serve Delicious 3, we had a lot of good reviews and good content and coverage to pull from. So we just kind of had a ranking system. And when we felt that some quote or some it's like, oh, we got to include this site or that site, because it's based on their size. I think we had Kotaku up on this section for a while, but the quote was sort of like, but it was Kotaku, right? So we went with that for a while, but we got a better quote. We ended up updating it and changing it. The game had already been legitimized, essentially, thanks to the Kotaku article and other things to that point. So we didn't need it anymore. So we were able to move on from the Kotaku quote and put up something better that we thought, better captured the game, better covered it with the Touch Arcade quote. So,
speaking to that, I did have one thing that I found. I don't remember what page it was or what game, unfortunately, but I've seen it a few times. Say you don't have your game necessarily all the way out yet, but you've launched your store page. People really haven't been reviewing it or anything else. Some people go the route of some random guy, like that's the quote, best game I played in years, member of the dev team or whatever, So again,
right.
That whole brevity and kind of
especially would fix the tone of your game. And I was thinking the same thing when Cuppy said someone respected or well established. It's such a big community now that I don't know all the streamers. So if you have a great quote from someone smaller, I wouldn't scroll by and go like, oh, that's nobody, and go like, oh, I just don't know who that is.
Right. So. Yeah, and that's a great point. It's unless it's someone massively popular that that kind of aligns with the masses on Steam, then yeah, you don't need to kind of concern yourself too much about the outlet versus the quote. As long as the quote comes from like a legitimized source, we always want to like hyperlink to it, right? And they'll go through, and you're like, I really hope their website's active today, that they paid their monthly bill. You don't want to necessarily worry about that, right? Like, so if it's a really small site, that kind of thing, or a streamer or a YouTuber that really hasn't established themselves as like a regular, then that might not be as good. But how many people are actually going to click through as well?
Sure.
So
you're putting your best foot forward and being prepared that what that best foot is will change over time. So like you're going to go back and reassess as you get further into the process.
Yeah,
totally.
There was a game that I actually was quoted on at one point, but of course, as the bigger folks started covering it, I went away, and it makes sense. I'm not mad or bitter about it, but yeah, and that gives you, maybe a small amount of exposure to like a smaller streamer or content creator on YouTube or what have you. So they're like, "Who's Bumpy McSquigums?" And they might click on it just because the name's weird or different, or they never heard of him. So it all kind of helps, right? Everybody helps everybody else. That's the kind of the thing. We all rise,
Yeah, it's a good point that as a small, or it made me think that as a small content creator, you might, as you send over your content, point out a couple of choice quotes that you mentioned in your video. If it's a new store page or something and they don't have a review section yet, they might just run with that, and that might help you out as well to get a little bit of notoriety through that store page. That just made me think of that. So could we jump over to the Manifold Garden Steam store page real quick? The one section that is not on the Cook Serve Delicious 3 page that I wanted to mention real quick is the awards section. And so the awards we do have some awards mentioned in the special announcements, but that's kind of that was the choice of us, of myself and the developer, was to put those in the special announcement section because there's only 2 of them. And it was going to be better highlighted, we think, via the special announcement section. Now, if you scroll down to underneath the Metacritic 85, which is a fantastic score for an indie, it's almost impossible to get above a 79 as an indie developer. So as an indie game, so you really have to fight. You really have to beat the odds for that. You see this award section, right? Best nominee games for best debut. That's like BAFTA awards, I believe, GDC awards, IGF, Amaze, Eurogamer, The New Yorker. I mean, obviously, Manifold Garden was an award type of game, an award-winning type of game, nomination type of game. So they got some. They did. The developers were smart, submitted it to all these festivals and award ceremonies, and were able to get a bunch of nominations and awards for it. So by adding that to your section, it's just another area to kind of like legitimize your game. As Kelly pointed out, this section like could be not. It's not like it doesn't have to be a joke section, but but like depending on your game, an award section might not matter at all. Like who cares? Like in certain aspects of certain genres and games and stuff. But games that you're in like competitive markets with, awards can be like pretty big. Obviously, games with artistic or like one-time narrative games, getting some legitimacy through awards and festivals can be really good to convince, to be that extra kind of like help down the funnel for people to buy your game and say, oh yeah, no, they've been nominated. This isn't just some quirky, not good looking, or it's like there's so many other choices out there, right? So just those extra little things can maybe shift the weight for someone to say, oh yeah, well, instead of me just seeing this as an anonymous game, now it has a little bit more of a connection to me via this award I know about or that. So
I think the visual representation is important too. Like this should probably look a bit fancier. This is just another one I was just checking real quick. Telepath Tactics. And it's got, nominations and awards and all sorts of stuff like that, but it just doesn't have that same pop, that same visual presentation of...
I think that's a great point, and that we kind of saw that in the special announcement section, but we didn't have the text to compare it to, is go with images over text. Like, make your text images. Yeah. Like, make them into, like, actual enticing graphics, right? Like, make your text into actual graphics. And share those graphics versus just typing them out and having them be there sort of...
People are still giant children, they're impressed by big colors and pictures and images, right?
And that little text is just sort of it's just sort of anonymous on the page, right? It's not something that draws your eye.
Yeah, you gotta go.
And again, nothing against the developer. It's just and as a developer, if you're a solo developer like Telepath Tactics is, you might not have the time or want to do those extra graphics. I totally understand that. Like it's not this like massive important thing to do. But you're trying to
Sinister design, by the way. I love you.
We're talking about optimizations, right? And this is an area that we would say, okay, maybe if we had time to do the graphics, or we could get someone to do it, or if just based on our consultation, if the developer was like, yeah, I agree, I should do some graphics for that. That would be a benefit potential. I mean, at least potentially. Maybe not like, it's incremental, some of this stuff, right? Yeah. It's not necessarily like, oh God, you have to do this.
It's always the whole ethos, mythos, whatever the word would be, of putting your best foot forward. You might not need to do all these things, but if you do all these things, each little bit helps, adds to the presentation, and eventually you have your best possible, foot forward that you can give. So.
And all these little changes, all these little incremental things are for the philosophy of trying to sell to one more person, one more copy. We need to get away from the idea of, I need to make 10,000 sales. I need to hit 100,000 sales. It's like, we need to stop thinking about that via like marketing planning, and think more about it as, what's the next little step we can take to convince one more person, to be interested in and buy this game. I think that philosophy takes development studios a lot further than trying to see the rainbow before you can even imagine it or get there, right? Like, and try to already be there and stuff. So it's just it's definitely something that I think we should be emphasizing more as a industry, because it's just so backwards to think I'm going to make this game and it's going to sell X amount of copies before you've done any of the legwork to even build up a community, etc. So,
is there? I just want to ask: is there a reason you didn't include, Giant Bomb Game of the Year? This stuff is, it's big, it's right there. But is there a reason that none of that's included in an award section itself on Cook Serve Delicious?
I think that it's just based on the fact that we have those two awards that we want to highlight, and there's just nothing else that we have that we want to put in that bottom right section. Although that actually might,
and all that.
That might change, though. I can't say anything yet, but we did get a nod for something that I'll be able to talk about later. And yeah, so we'll be able to add to that section, I think, eventually. But I think the thinking was, let's make these like you said, these graphics really pop, and instead of even putting them in that kind of tucked away bottom right section, we're going to put them in the main part of the page.
Yeah, it's basically the same type of situation here on the Manifold Garden one, except instead of putting it here, because I guess having to have to pop out more and to read more and see. But if you have the big ones that you want, you're going to want to keep those in the forefront, right?
And that's something I've talked to the developer about. If you go back to the CSD3 page, is that I kind of don't like the fact that the Discord you have to pull down to see it.
I know.
That said, we're in between games right now, and he's like, let's wait until we announce our next game, and then we'll move the Discord one back to the top.
Yeah.
And I think that makes a lot of sense too, because right now the Discord is not the most important thing to be funneling people to, but rather convincing people to buy the game. As CSD3 has been out longer and longer and longer, and it gets harder to turn sales and such at full price. Leading with those things, like you said, best foot forward on the store page. Yep, makes a lot of sense. It's been almost a year for a lot of things right now. It's been crazy. Yeah. So and look at that, 79. I mean, we're so close. It's so hard to get above 80. So you can have everybody love you, and there's so many reviews that are like, man, best game ever, 8 out of 10.
I mean, it's going up.
But you're just hanging. My point is that the ceiling usually for indies is 8. And so if you get most 8s and you get a few 6s and 7s, you're not going to have an 8. You're going to have a 7.4, 7, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, or 74 out of 100. Luckily, as we've seen now from multiple personal experiences, review score does not matter a spit to sales anymore. It just doesn't. If your game, it can add to things potentially. It's just so many games. So many games, both huge and really small, indies that just have a hard time getting a Metacritic, have bad review scores and sell fantastically. So It's not like this big thing.
It's how things have kind of evolved, and I know it's going to upset a lot of journalists, and no offense or anything to them, but people just don't really turn to these big sites or to journalists anymore to really see what a game is like, because
I think they're niche. I think they're just niche now. Like,
well,
you know what I mean? Like,
to a degree, but they kind of do a tried and true formula that they've done for X number of years, right? And people are like, okay, it's whatever. It's
and
kind of
that
a
was
machine.
kind of,
And now they check
that was
out
kind
with
of,
influencers.
yeah, but it's kind of in vogue, right? Like a decade ago, before all the content creation, maybe not 15 years ago, 20 years ago, before it all just took over on the video side of things. I think that was really like, it wasn't just like the status quo, but it was same with like indies maybe 10 years ago. It wasn't that we were doing anything different. It's just that we were more popular. There was a fad at the time for us.
Yeah.
And so that fad of, this is where I go to get my information with reviews is changed.
One of the few places that people could go even at that point, right?
Right. Like it's like the review sites are like entombed in early internet days. And always will be, like, because that's where they were able to make their hay. Was like they were the first ones to be able to.
Well, they were like the Netflix
right?
of streaming services. Now there's all these other ones, and everybody has to battle it out, right? So.
Right, and like you pointed out, they're not Netflix because they're like a different medium entirely.
They're almost like
the
Blockbuster
new Netflix
at this point, right?
Right, Blockbuster. That's a great example. Yeah, that and maybe some people still like to go to the video store and pick and browse and get a couple and stuff, but for the most part, people have moved on to the faster, quicker to digest, etc. kind of stuff. Yeah. Anyway, let's digress.
So we've diverged enough. Gotcha.
We've diverged. Let's digress. So we talked about some of the sections, the other areas that you can kind of focus on. That this has more. Now we're getting into more of the development side of things versus just the marketing side of things. Although they cross over.
So for the you can see Steam page, essentially, there's nothing else that we need to point out. Just real briefly, it's good to have eye-catching pictures and or like Manifold Garden, for instance. A lot of people like to see the GIFs, right? I like to see the moving pictures and such to really showcase their game. It's good to split their different sections with, some sort of image or what have you. But,
always break up text, right? Yeah. Always break up your text and give. Always be thinking about giving players, that instant, hit of dopamine or whatever of like, what? This looks great. Oh my gosh, I want to get, Yeah, exactly.
We covered this before. I just wanted to touch on that again. Totally. That's kind of the last thing to really throw in there. And, is there anything for Point Shop and Steam achievements that you're going to be covering today? Because that's something I never really notice or look at. So I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, for sure. So like that section right below with the socials on the right side with like the visit the website, socials, Twitch, Twitter, just don't forget about that kind of stuff. That's also where you can point folks to your social media sites, like your Discord, your Twitch, and like your Twitter, etc., Facebook. You don't need to be pointing people to your Facebook. You need to be pointing people towards your Twitter and your true. Discord. And again, William Cheer is a big has a big Twitch following based on his development streams. So that's not a bad thing to share for this particular situation. If you happen to have a decent following on Twitch, and you want to push that as well, then that certainly can help in that cyclical way we talked about, both kind of in both directions. But let's scroll up a little bit to the what we're talking about with the achievements, point shop items, and also just some of the other stuff like trading cards. So this also includes, I mentioned this in the notes, we're gonna throw in badges, emoticons, backgrounds, and any other Steam Workshop stuff that isn't just like directly related to like in-game items. Although I think Steam Workshop actually is all in-game items. So obviously,
aren't emoticons and stuff like that? That's just Steam wide, right?
Right. I'm talking about Steam. Yeah, Steam Workshop was the last thing after emoticons. Gotcha. That's talking specifically about Like I'm like all the Team Fortress 2 hats and stuff was through Steam Workshop essentially, or you could make your own hat through Steam Workshop and submit it for them to consider that kind of stuff.
Like Space Engineers has a big Steam Workshop thing. I remember where that's at though.
Right. It's essentially modding with a little bit more control over what the players can do, can and can't do, I suppose. With your game and your and I guess the code they have access to, or the mod. Usually it's not even code. It's excuse me. It's like a mod.
Yeah.
Mod generator that you work with and work through the kind of that mod application. So, with all of these, you need to make sure your game's kind of right for them, right? Like you wouldn't do if your game's right for Steam Workshop, great, then definitely go for it. All these things
wouldn't work with Manifold Garden, right?
Right. You want, I mean, unless they created some sort of sandbox where you could just create
a level or something. Yeah,
levels. Yeah, that would be the only thing, right? Like, and they don't have that, so there's no involvement with that right now and such. Again, I think it's a pretty big undertaking to do some Steam Workshop stuff. It's not just something that you go, oh, let's throw that in. And it's not going to add time to our development. It probably would, but it also leans towards the GAS, games as a service type of notion that Steam players love, Steam users really are into, and like can help your game go like really far. Again, it depends on your game, right? If your game is not meant for that, then you can't go that direction. But other things like achievements, you can pretty much do for most games. Like I would say that there's probably maybe a handful of games out there. Like Duskers is a game that decided to eschew achievements because it would ruin the whole like immersion of it. And people have fought back with the developer on this a lot, to the point now where it's over 5 years out, and he's like, you know what? Maybe I will now at this point add achievements. Like we've had sort of our immersive period. We've had the heyday with all the players and stuff. And, maybe it's just not as important to me as it was when I originally released this piece of art. It was originally a piece of art to him, right? He wanted that immersion, that immersive effect to be really like, not interrupted by anything, including, hey, you did this. You focused on this to get this achievement instead of actually just being immersed in the game, right? Like, that kind of thing. So he was so philosophically he decided, no achievements at the time, but eventually they might. It sounds like he's going to move into that because it's a good way to boost. It's a good marketing move. Like 5 years out, the game still has a little bit of clout. Why not give it an update where a lot of the players who have played before go, hey, I have a reason to come back now and play. We'll see. I don't know exactly how it's going to work if he ends up doing it. I doubt there would be anything in retrospect or
retrospective. The question is he going to do the retroactive one? Because that would, I wouldn't say defeat the point, but I would hope he wouldn't actually do that.
I imagine he can't. I mean, I think it's really hard to figure out if
there's oftentimes I get trading cards, and I think I've gotten it. Maybe I'm just thinking trading cards, but I think I've gotten achievements after the fact for something that I've done because
it depends on how
the
game has
files
recorded.
Past a certain area.
Right. It depends on exactly. It depends on how the information, the data that's been recorded, that's been received to Steam. That kind of thing. Like, is that a viable thing? And it might be. It might be. I'm not the one who knows a whole lot about that. If that's going to actually work or not. So, so achievements are something that basically should be fairly automatic. We don't need to go into achievements like a ton, but basically with achievements, you want them to, I don't know, there's like an in-between. This is probably subjective discussion, but I kind of didn't like how I played this game recently, Gas Station Simulator. I did 2 things and unlocked 10 achievements. It was a little much. And I looked at the achievement percentage, and it was between 75 and 95% of all players had unlocked those achievements. Yeah. That's not really achieving anything then. Because if the vast majority of players have done it, then that's not really an achievement of any kind. Again, I'm not one of those guys that's like, make games hard and impossible to play and like less accessible, but rather saying, okay, let's make your achievements something that took effort to do, or might come down in the mid to late game as opposed to a bunch of them in the early game. And mind you, some achievements in the early game are really important for hooking, like for getting you into it. Yeah,
I did something. But yeah, it's something like finish the tutorial or survive your first day or something along those lines, right? Not
A
you
single
did a
achievement for
thing.
that.
Oh, you did
Here's
another thing. Yeah.
here's a dozen achievements for you to get in the first minute. It doesn't feel what's the word? It's like it like ruins the whole mood of it.
It's
Like
like
the
a-
whole point of it,
Like
right?
a
Like you're like,
false
okay,
something, right?
I'm not buoyed by this feeling anymore, right? Like I'm just sort of like meh about it now that you've just been handing them out like popcorn, kind of thing. So
Contrary
I
to
don't know.
that, we have Tales of Magi.
Which has like a metric ton of achievements, and all of them are like achievements. Like they're hard. They're hard to get, and they've got like what, like over 700 or something. 1700, right? So again, Tome is a roguelike. It is a GOS for sure, and this has been over at least 5 years of time, if not a decade of time. All these achievements, and it's probably over a decade.
1.7% of people achieved a lot of these. Like, they're hard to get.
They're very hard to get, right? And again, they don't need to be 1%, but they need to be less than 75%.
I agree.
That's just like it's just saying you played the game. That's what that says. You know what I mean? It's that's not necessarily saying that you did anything. It's just that you played the game. Possibly at 75%, you played the game for 20 minutes versus the 95% of people who played the game for 6 minutes or whatever that got that first achievement. So it's just weird. So it's a pet peeve of mine that I saw recently. Trading cards, badges, backgrounds, and emoticons. These are all things that are integrated like through Steam itself that Steam users can use. Like, emoticons that Steam users can use in their chat with each other. Badges are on and trading cards. Trading cards has their own system, of course. Badges, they show up in profiles. Backgrounds can be used in profiles. And things of that sort. Backgrounds, of course, things like wallpapers, I think is what that means, basically. Like it says backgrounds in Steamworks. So
yeah, here's the badges. I'm just gonna look at mine here, quick.
Yep.
Oh god, I don't even know what I'm looking at. I never go into this side of Steam myself.
But all this stuff is probably like not, other than maybe achievements. All this stuff is just
extras for the people.
It's not necessary if you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
If you want to give your game sort of, or you want to give certain people or a certain percentage of Steam users more incentive to kind of consider your game, having these achievements, trading cards, badges, backgrounds, emoticons, etc. Can and will do that for you. It just depends on what the multiplier is based on how much traffic you're getting in the first place. But it's never bad, and we've talked about this before. Tiny Disaster and Bumpy, we've talked about how it's never bad to lean into your platform that you're working with. If they have some sort of option or feature that you can take advantage of, especially if you feel like the overhead, the amount of work that you have to take on for it is not a ton, it's usually worth investing into and doing it.
I would say like the word to the wise, since we're kind of focusing this on pre-launch, is like, don't let yourself fall down the rabbit hole of adding these little things. If you finished everything else you need to finish ahead of launch and have the extra time, it's a great thing to invest the extra time into. But it's not, cut a feature because you've run out of time levels of importance.
Yeah, it's a great point. You should definitely have this as part of a marketing plan in a sense that, like, we're planning this to wrap up the game, have the game completely ready to go and gold 2 to 3 months before we're going to release it. And then over the last 3 months, we're looking for additional things to do to like better our chances of a great release. That kind of stuff at that point. I mean, achievements should already probably be part of the plan. Everything else that's discussed.
I would say that, yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Achievements are probably the most important of those things because while I'm
it
not
should be
necessarily
planned out earlier if possible, right? Yeah.
Well, I'm not necessarily one of those achievement hunters. They do exist. That is a reason that people will play many games, right? They will dive in because they want all the achievements. They want 100% it, platinum or whatever it's called on Xbox.
Yeah, you could argue that Xbox was the one that kind of started it. It was like people were playing Xbox games for no other reason but to get achievement points and unlocks. Like they didn't even like Xbox. I guarantee you, a lot of people played Xbox games not because they were good or liked them, but because they wanted to get those achievement point unlocks and such.
And it saves to your profile, right?
Right. It's all added up together, just like PlayStation trophies. Steam has their own kind of thing here. I think it's like kind of probably third place to Xbox and PlayStation's
See, I feel
tiles.
like Steam achievements might have. I'm probably wrong, but I feel like they've been around just as long as Xbox, but nobody cared.
They might have been. I thought Steam saw. Oh, I mean, Steam does a lot of this, and to their credit, that it works just fine. And I would do this as a business too. They go, "Oh, that's this new thing that's really working."
Yeah.
Like, I think they saw that with Xbox. Like, what is it, 360 that started it? I think with achievements, maybe Xbox the original. I don't think so though. I think it was like 360 that really had the. Like two of the biggest Xbox sites we work with have achievements in the name of the URL. Like, that's how important achievements are to Xbox. But I don't know about the exact history. I think Steam wasn't too far behind. But I do remember back when I think you could have achievements, like AI War, I think had achievements in game. But it didn't have it through Steam because Steam didn't offer it yet. Like, so if you were a PC game and wanted to have achievements, what is it, a dozen years ago, you could do that, but they would have to be in the actual game itself unlocking as opposed to integrated through Steam, if that makes sense. So there was no Steam achievement. It was in-game achievement, and you can look at your achievements in a sub-menu in the game, that kind of thing, and they're not added to your profile or anything like that. And that was obviously not an optimal situation, but it was better than nothing. So it's like you're right that achievements existed on PC probably before Xbox did, but Xbox was the
game, yeah.
Yeah, and Xbox definitely was the one that said we're the platform that's going to do it first, right?
Steam launched it with the orange box in late 2007. I'm not sure when Xbox 360 came out, but I probably before that.
Neither here nor there though. So we're going to move forward.
Yep. Divergence once again.
And digression. Back to let's look at. So I'm on the Steamworks page right now. We've talked about the edit store page stuff. Let's just talk about some of these other sections real quick, and then we'll get it. And as we transition into our next point, which will be,
I think we've covered just about everything on the store page that you have listed here.
I'm talking about This is moving to the Steamworks page as opposed to the store page at this point. Yeah.
Do we? Because I see requesting Steam key products. Was that going to be the next thing that we moved into?
Yeah, as long as and you don't have to. This could be. I don't know what we want to show here. We don't really have a whole lot of. We can't show on the back end off, of course, because that's supposed to be a private thing, like for developers, etc. So, if we want to just leave it on the store page at the top, that's fine. If you want to transition to something else,
I'll just put us back to this one.
Yeah, that sounds good. So let's talk about the store page, or the Steamworks, the store page backend via Steamworks. What we're looking at here, the landing page. So we already talked about edit store page. That was like, there's like different sections on here that I'll kind of describe to y'all.
At the very beginning of assume we have people watching who don't even know what Steamworks is, who want to make a game one day, but don't know how Steam handles any of it.
Sure. So first of all, you go through a process to get access to the backend to create a game and push the game through on that. You obviously want to integrate via your files, your game files, and make sure that the game is working via Steam, etc. I don't deal with a lot of that. I deal with more of the creation of the store page itself. And so when you get to Steamworks, it's a little bit hard to navigate, but there are documentation and resources to use that they put up at the top. And then there are like YouTube videos out there from Valve employees that are definitely worth watching as you're sort of learning sort of the ins and outs of what we're talking about here, and how to navigate, I think, is the most important thing, right? Like, a lot of the stuff we talk about, it all sounds well and good, but if you can't find where to do it, that could be an issue. Unfortunately, we can't spend a lot of time or, can't visualize that for you here. So make sure that that's something that you're looking into moving forward as you get access to that. You can go through it little like piece by piece, but that is one hell of a rabbit hole, my friend. And you might want to instead look at each kind of individual section or write down the sections that you're interested in, and then do a little bit of research on each one and go from there. So right now I'm looking at, for me, we were talking about Cooks Are Delicious 3. So right now I'm on the Steamworks backend page for that. If I go to my dashboard, that gives me the option to go to different like apps or products that I have access to via Steamworks. And Cooks Are Delicious 3 is a package title I bring up.
Let's see here. I want to throw this into chat, as this is a Valve document that might give you extra information.
Thank you. Yeah, and a lot of these documentation, a lot of this documentation and these resources aren't just available to those who are already signed up for Steamworks. You can find them freely available on the internet if you just Google or go looking for it on YouTube, etc. So don't think, oh, I have to pony up the. I think it's only like $100 right now actually to get a. I think it's $100. It's still $100. I shouldn't say only. It is like a threshold to get over. Yep. So yeah, Steamworks or Steam itself will give you documentation to Steamworks without actually having to have a Steamworks account, and that's like Bumpy showing us off that ability right there. So, what I'm looking at right now is it tells me that I'm on the Cook Serve Delicious 3 apps and packages page. It gives me the exact number. Like it's the landing page. It gives me the exact Steam ID number that I have. So if I go to the I don't know if it does. It shows that. So if you go to Manifold Garden, this you don't actually have to do this, but like if you look at the URL between app and Manifold Garden, there's a 6-digit number, and that is your Steam ID essentially, your package ID. So every product
that's your what they call your app IDs. I think the way they
app ID. Yeah, app ID, and that's specific to any individual DLC or product that is released on Steam has its own app ID. And so that's something that's good to know if you're communicating with like a Valve contact. You can tell them your game name, which they'll get to eventually, but if you give them the app ID, it's almost like speeding up the process for them, because they're able to access that through their database faster. So in this case, below that, it tells me that the package title we're working with here is Cook Serve Delicious 3. Packages and apps are different, but they're the same. It's very annoying and confusing. This is Steamworks, so you'll have to. I don't want to go into that kind of whole thing, but the difference, I guess, is that like you can have multiple packages of the same app, I believe, to do like different editions. I think we've seen on. Not DLC, but like different package options for a game, like a starters pack, veterans pack that's more expensive, that kind of thing. Those would be different packages within the same app, I believe. So anyway, that's getting a little confusing. So let's move on. There's bundles. Where Cook Serve Delicious 3 is in 2 bundles right now via the Steam bundles. That's the Cook Serve Delicious Trilogy, which bundles Cook Serve Delicious 1, 2, and 3 together, and the Chaotic Cooking Bundle, which bundles together Cook Serve Delicious 3 with Overcooked 2 and Cooking Simulator, which are 2. So we have a in studio bundle and then out of studio bundle, or a kind of intra versus inter, I guess is how to think of it. So we're working with other developers for one of these bundles, and for the other one, it's just packages together the first 2 Cook Serve Delicious games. Both of them, I think both of those are savvy moves for that game. If you have the opportunity to do that with your kind of game, go for it. If not, look for other possibilities in terms of bundling. If we didn't have other Cook Serve Delicious games, we might look for other games just in our studio that we've released in the past period, right, to bundle with Cook Serve Delicious 3. And we wouldn't even call it Cook Serve Delicious 3. We'd call it something else. So below that, you have store presence. This is where we're getting into some of the stuff that we've talked about. Edit store page, which is like everything we've just talked about today, plus everything we talked about that first go around, the optimizations, the descriptions, adding trailers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can then view your store page. Obviously, you want to not just add those things, but view how it's going to look once those things are added. The description, the assets, etc., and make sure that they're formatted correctly, but also that they have the pop that you were expecting them to have when you first put them in. There's a mature content survey, which is encouraged to fill out. In fact, I think you have to do this. Is required before release. Yep. So you have to make sure that any mature content is explicitly explained, and that will be added to the store page as well. Like Boyfriend Dungeon would be a good example if you want to take a look at the mature content survey.
Death Trash, maybe.
Death Trash probably has one as well. And that's up to you what you want to put in there.
Doesn't.
You will.
Or
you can
it's
get
at the bottom. Right.
Yeah, you can get called out for it if you don't have it, and I think you might be able to have your game. You might be risking your game getting pulled. So it's important to do. and try to be as upfront about it as possible. Know what your mature content is, or your suggestive questionable content is, and make sure that it's pointed out. Not like line by line or anything like that, but it's just a survey. It's a survey, so you go through it, and it'll be, I think, pretty self-explanatory when you do it. Are you going to get a page up on that, Bumpy, or am I ready? Are we good to move on? How did you want to do it?
I've already been looking.
Oh, okay.
There's no mature content in your boyfriend dungeon, oddly.
Oh, okay. I think they put that in the game then. That I'm not sure if that makes a difference in the sense of.
We look at death trash. It's all the way at the bottom here.
Okay. But yeah, it's again not a huge thing, but something that you'll have to do as you're getting your package ready for release. Below that, some technical tools like edit Steamworks settings, define achievements, manage your workshop, upload trading card assets. We've talked about that.
What happened? What happened to Cup? He's
it's been like this for a couple minutes. I was waiting for a breathing point to ask if it was just me. I got a stream ended message on Discord, and then after that, I was up.
That explains everything.
And then that moved.
Yes.
That moved Tiny Disaster to Cup. I see.
Yes. How does it feel to be the boss?
Circle gets the square. I knew this was going to happen.
See, I blame you.
So this is Discord shuffling that we have to deal with, unfortunately, while we're streaming. So this is just a technical annoyance that we just got to deal with. Yep.
I wonder why it disappeared. It's strange. All right, no worries. Keep going.
Okay. Let's see here.
Hey, we're all back. Look at that. All right.
Okay. Got you back there. So yes, can you show the mature content one more time? I missed that before.
I apologize. I don't think it was on screen. Well, it might have been on screen, but all right, right here.
Yep. So that's that mature content section we were talking about. And now we're ready to move further into the Steamworks page. We talked about the technical tools. Edit Steamworks settings. We talked about that, where you can manage your workshop, define the achievements, upload trading card assets, etc. And now let's look at requesting Steam Key products for third-party promotions. So this is the second of 3 under technical tools. It says request Steam product keys. If you click it, it'll take you to a section called manage keys, and you select a type of key. So you could, there's 2 reasons why you're going to, 2 main reasons why you're going to request these kind of codes. One is for your studio personally, to be able to send out codes to content creators, reviewers, etc. In the pre-release state, usually and hopefully and mostly. And then there's also the other reason you would do it is because you would want to sell on other PC stores that offer Steam keys as well. Stores like Humble Store, Green Man Gaming, and others I'm not thinking of right away. Not GOG. GOG does not offer Steam codes.
Oh, that's true. They keep their stuff. Yeah, you're right. They keep all their stuff internally on their own.
And I think Itch doesn't offer Steam codes either, or it might just be a thing where you can offer Steam codes via Itch, but you don't have to, and nobody really does most of the time.
A site that I'm not sure about, but it's been around a while, and I think it's legit. Maybe you can add some legitimacy to the Indie Gala. I've always been kind of apprehensive of that one.
Indie Gala is one of those sites that's we're a little on the fence with. They're a bundle site mostly. The reason we've been put off with them in the past is the high amount of discount, or the high discount range that they ask for, which again, necessarily hating on that from a business perspective. Right. They're trying to
they're not
compete in a really tough market.
They're not like one of the other sites that shall not be mentioned, the 3-digit ones and the ones that are like a penguin.
No, they're not a gray site as far as I'm concerned, but there is always concern, and this is something that we talked about when I read the topic, requesting Steam Key products for third-party promotions, discussing pros and cons. The cons is that you don't necessarily, you do kind of know where these codes are going. But you're giving them to these hopefully legitimate stores. Humble, is easy to see. They would be, they would be in that legitimate kind of category and stuff. Indie Gala, and it's not that they're illegitimate, but you're wondering, what is their process to avoid key reselling? What is their process to try to combat gray market sales and such? Steam, GOG, Humble, they all have pretty top-notch, processes set in place for this kind of thing. So we've seen in the past that if your game, now again, this isn't necessarily talking about Indie Gala specifically or even directly, but other sites that do bundles, that do high discount percentages, that gives an opportunity for people who want to buy your game in bulk at a really cheap price to do so. And so that is, it's obviously detrimental to go and see that someone can buy your game for 90% off on a site that you didn't authorize it to be sold on. That's
essentially you buy on Steam, it ties it to your account generally, unless you gift it to someone. Whereas here you're getting actual Steam codes that you have to activate. So reselling it,
right,
is unfortunate.
And even if you gift a code, the Steam user that receives it still has to activate it through their Steam account. So it keeps it in house if you don't sell third party in a way that there's some peace of mind there, right? Yeah. That said, you can see some really decent revenue numbers if you sell on other sites that you might pass up on.
How does that work?
If you think about that.
I'm sorry. I apologize for jumping in.
No worries.
Do they buy the chunk of codes from you at a discount, and then it's theirs to do what they want with? Is that how it works?
Here's how it.
So say I got Cook Serve Delicious 3, 100 codes, and I sold it to, we'll say, Indie Gala, since I mentioned them. Do they go, I'll buy that from you for 50% what the normal cost would be, and then it's theirs to do whatever they want with, to discount it however they want? Is it something like that?
Nope, that's not how it works. So Steam has actually been okay until about the last maybe 2 to 4 years, maybe. I don't know. It's at times hard to keep up with these days, but until very, what I would call pretty recently, over the last couple of years, Steam would allow you to order these codes and then give them to, say, Humble Store for no cost at all. It's literally just, you get 1,000 to 5,000 or 10,000 or whatever codes that Humble wants to say, okay, we're going to fill our coffers and make sure we
Does Humble
have enough Steam
pay
codes.
You after they sell it then? Is that how it works? I'm just
correct.
Okay.
It's just like Steam in the sense that if a copy sells, then you get that net revenue on the copies sold. And I think Humble offers a better percentage than 70%. It's a little bit higher than that. So through widget, I think it's 95%. If you sell it through your own site through the Humble widget, you're getting most of that revenue up front.
And that's pretty much all third-party sites are like that?
I would say the majority that at least uses Steam keys, that's kind of how it goes, right?
So you give them a chunk and then they pay you when they sell them all.
Say, not sell them all, but just
sell them
monthly payment.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, sell them off. Yes. Monthly payments, just like you would be getting through Steam, right? Another opportunity would be, or another way of going about it would be a bundle situation where they're we want 2,000 codes. We'll give you $5,000 for those 2,000 codes. We're going to sell it through this bundle or through this promotion. You can trust that we will be doing that with these codes. That kind of thing.
Gotcha.
You want that assurance that I'm not just giving you these codes to do with whatever you want with for $5,000, but rather I know specifically what you're going to be doing with them, and they're going to be involved in these promotions. Sometimes I don't know who was doing it, but one does a mystery thing where you just get a game after you do complete a certain percentage of their their platform game that's going on. How Steam has summer sale games and things like that, right? So you're earning points, and so they give you an AI War 2 code away, kind of randomly, it's a mystery award, that kind of thing. So that's similar to a bundle situation. You're I don't know who's going to get my game necessarily, other than someone who is I may or may not want it, but I was able to make money off of it, and it should not be going to a reseller, is the idea. That's kind of the assurances that you're kind of getting there. I had something else. I'm trying to back up a little bit. You were talking about, so what's going on now, the reason why Steam gave them away for free before, do either of you have can either of you come up with the idea of why they would be like, not give us money now kind of thing?
Because they're the biggest digital distribution thing in the world, and there's no competition, so it's no big deal.
I think it was more like that's how they got there, of like get players onto their platform.
You guys, so it's like you guys both kind of like were puzzling together the answer. Steam's the biggest. They also know that if they give Steam codes out to Humble and other stores, where are those people going to redeem the codes? Yeah. They're going to come back to Steam, right? So if it's an established Steam user, great. They went out to get it somewhere else. Steam has a thing that says you don't discount the game greater than what you're offering Steam users via the store, right? Via the platform. So you can't just go 90% off on some of their storefront and not offer 90% off on the Steam store. If they see that, they'll get mad about that.
So essentially, hey, Cooks Are Delicious is 50%'s biggest discount. So you couldn't do 70 on Humble. That's a no-no.
Yeah, I mean, exactly right. Like it's if you're like a few percentages off, up or down, no one's going to freak out. But if you're like offering like, your game for like $2 on one platform and like no lower than $7 on another platform, then it's understandable that the platform, and especially if it's the original platform, has a gripe there. So in this case, it's more about just, we know that you're either going to buy the game and come back to us if you're already a Steam user, or you're going to find you're just newly getting into PC games. You found this code on another site, and now you're a new Steam user. Yep. Now we have a new Steam user, and they saw that happening with Humble Bundle specifically. I think they saw a ton of uptick in Steam users through those massive, selling Humble Bundles that we saw in the 2010 to 2016 period. Kind of that area where the Humble Bundle was like this really hot thing where it hadn't been overdone.
Well, now they even have their subscription where you get like their bundle. You pay one monthly cost and you get X number of games for free every month. Well,
they're trying to hang on, right? Because they're realizing that the bundle process doesn't work the same as the subscription, or the subscription, model is the model now. The bundle model, right, has failed more or less because it's been overused.
Yeah.
The race to the bottom model has been overused and is failing now, and developers can't make enough money.
Well, at the same time, with the subscription, it's you got not necessarily guaranteed, but kind of guaranteed money versus, this bundle might sell well. It might be, interesting to people. Or, it didn't. Right. Versus, hey, I have 10,000 subscribers. I'm going to make some money.
Right. Subscription is scary to a premium modeled indie developer because you're going, I don't know how much upfront money I can actually get from this. But we've been seeing in a lot of cases, that's where indie developers that are, really solid veteran developers are leading, is they're saying, you don't get my game on your subscription service unless you fork it over and put me in a position to continue to make the money that I need for my next game. So we've talked about this before, right? You don't necessarily have to sell 10,000 copies anymore with the new subscription services and the way things work. You get that six-figure amount up front from that subscription service, and then you can just move on to your next game. Sounds like a pretty sweet deal, actually, overall. So it's not like the subscription services is like the indie apocalypse that a lot of people were worried about. You just have to know, you have to be in that position to, ask for the money. And that means you have a good game and all that kind of stuff. So
it's one of those checks and balances thing. It's like, we'll take Fall Guys, right? They did really well with the PlayStation Plus game for free and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Maybe, if you look at just numbers, if it could have been as popular, they would have made a lot more if they didn't do that. But the game wouldn't have hit the peak of popularity that it did if they didn't do that. So it's one of those, you're kind of hedging your bets. It's like, well, I'll get, a good chunk of money that will pay for, future development, keep the company going, so on and so forth. It's less than overall sales that I might get if it takes off, but would it take off if people weren't able to access it for free? Probably not. It's just one of those things. There's that perfect storm and balance that you really got to consider.
Especially if you're a game that needs to go viral or multiplayer, needs to be like a hop and all that kind of stuff. It's worth mitigating the risks that you're facing otherwise. So just to come back to the release key kind of situation, so you can get You can get default release keys. That's as in when the game is released on Steam, you can use a code to unlock it. This is important because you don't want a digital store or a retail store to get those codes ahead of time, and then they're active ahead of time before the game is on sale on like Steam. So the intended use of that of default release keys, digital store, release store, bundle, giveaway, and crowdfunding, all of those things essentially saying once the game is now officially released, those codes can start working for those areas. Now there's release date override for press and review.
That explains a lot, because every once in a while I think I end up getting a default key and it doesn't work, and then they got to retract, and it's a big mess.
Yep, it is. It's kind of an annoying thing. The other thing you're doing, so the second one is a release date override. These are the ones that most people do for content creators like Bumpy McSquigums. They're going to send them a press. They're going to do a release date override, which allows you to unlock the game or activate the game in the pre-release state on the store page. So this is for press and review, beta test, or crowdfunding reward. So essentially, if you offered a reward on your crowdfunding campaign that gave you access to the game prior to 1.0, you can do that and not have to just give them, a downloadable copy or a zip of your game. You can send them a Steam code. So there's also developer auto grant, which is for external dev team use. Essentially, if there is a dev team that's not part of your Steamworks, and you need to give them a code to work on this game.
We get those sometimes too, right? For Indie Brothers, when we have the demo game, what have you.
But there really is no difference to us between a release date override and developer auto grant. It's really the same thing. So
now there's one thing that I did want to ask about this. Again, this is something that I don't really get to see much. There's been it doesn't happen often, but I've been sent stuff that's on release day, and then they send another one, and I can't activate it because the game's already activated on my thing. So there's like two separate entities, because oftentimes when that does happen, they send me a different code, and it's like a blah 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 beta, and I'm able to get into it because it's called something different. So do you know how that works? I'm not sure if you do or not.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the difference there is that they got you the release date override key, which will always say for beta use or beta, and it will always make like one content creator reply and say, "Oh, did I get the wrong game? I was really looking for the wrong build. I was really looking for the full version." Yeah, it's the full version. It's the same build. It just happens to be a different key state, or code state or whatever, because of the pre-release kind of thing.
That trips over to the full release once the game's out, right?
Yeah, once you have the code unlocked on the star page, it doesn't really matter what code you used. Yeah. It will continue to update that game, as long as you have it installed, right? Like as long as you continue to get the updates. So you'll never have to worry as a content creator, I got a pre-release code. Will I get the 1.0 build? Yeah, of course. It'll update automatically because it's tied to the main branch, so to speak, of what you upload to. There's also like a beta branch where that's a completely different thing. Like in Steam, as a user, you have to switch the branch to say, I want the beta version of this game versus the kind of 1.0 version of this game. Like Hunt Showdown has that, right? They have beta test servers where you can play the latest updates that aren't fully released yet. But they're like at your own peril. It's probably buggy. They're still trying to figure. It's called test servers at that point. And then there's of course beta branches you can do with single player games as well, and encourage people like that want to like alpha testers post 1.0. If your game continues to get updates, that's where they can spend a lot of time. And there's those people that want to work on the game and actually help you progress it for the rest of the players. That kind of thing that you can do. Back to where we're at here on the Steamworks page, we'll get down to the Curator Connect, which is our next major point here.
Something criminally underutilized.
And I've got some new kind of thoughts on that as well.
Honestly, I've gotten 2 or 3 requests, but I've also not been as active as I should be on my Curator page either.
So you have a Curator Connect page.
I have a Curator page.
You're a Steam curator is what I'm saying. Okay, cool. So this is like such an interesting topic. It's very similar to what we talked about with reviewers and content creators, in that there is a lot of bad actors in the Curator Connect situation. A lot of people that are trying to request codes that are just trying to get the game for this reason or that. They're not trying to get the game to actually
I didn't even know you could
it.
reach out to developers through that. I thought that was developers reach out to you only.
So yes, however,
Ooh.
Steam curators are basically, they feel like they're content creators now, which is fine. They totally are to some degree. It's almost like someone on like with a big TikTok or social media or like social media account saying, "Can I get a code and share this on my social media account?" It's like, if it's legit enough, yeah, absolutely. Same with the Curator Connect page, right? So they're not contacting us through Steam; they're contacting us through email. Like they look up our like contact emails, and they send us the same kind of pitch that you would send as a content creator to a developer, right?
Gotcha.
And they say, "I have this nice Curator Connect, page with X amount of followers, thousands, if not tens of thousands, etc. Can you please send along a code?" The problem is, 8 out of 10 of these people are like not legitimate. Of these emails you receive, a lot like Curator Connect is, a lot of these curators are just creating these pages as a front, similar to like the YouTube pages that we get sometimes that are botted, that like are just kind of created to say, "Oh, this email that says I'm a content creator and I do this," and then you go look at the videos and you're like, "Okay, these are like 3 different videos, each like have been uploaded like 3 months apart, or there's just something, or they were uploaded 2 years ago," things like that. Like, so it gets to a point where there are pros and cons to doing this, and you have to kind of go about this the right way. When you click on, so just know that like curators in one aspect are similar to the reviewers and the content creators that are going to be emailing you to get your game. You're going to need to vet those out, and you're going to need to see which ones are legitimate and which ones are not. And like I said, a lot of the curators that we get are not, like as in our Curator Connect requests are not legitimate. Like, so you just want to make sure about that. Take a look. They will always provide, the legitimate ones will always provide like the right links to make sure that you can kind of confirm they're on the level. And then you want to look at their curator page as well to see what kind of reviews they're leaving. There are a lot of joke curator pages that are like, there's one that's like yes or no. And
yeah, those infuriate me to no end.
And they're very low effort, stupid things, and of course they have 1 million followers, so that's why they infuriate Bumpy to no end.
Well, I mean,
I totally understand.
Look, like I have it up right now, right? Like now I haven't touched this in a long time because there just never seemed to really be that much, and it's just extra work that I struggled to have time with. But I mean, I think I had more followers at one point, but like I said, I don't do it very often. But 10 followers, or I actually go through and I legit do the job, right? Even like if I have a full review where I've gone into the actual game and done a review next to it, and then I will usually include a YouTube video if I've done something on that. Like, I put in the work, I put in the effort, I just don't see anything back. And then you go and you look at somebody who's like, yes, nep, no, cheese. It's like, why are people, it really infuriates me a lot.
So the good news is that your YouTube account is still working for you when we look on Curator Connect via the Steamworks.
But it's not right. That's actually a wrong number. Very old.
Right,
number.
but it's a big. Yeah. It's obviously and it compares your page like and when I look at up and I'm trying to find someone and I'm going, okay, they only have X amount of followers here, but they have a huge following here. Maybe if we don't even connect on. But to be a curator, we just go to the YouTube page right away and follow you through that kind of stuff. So, the thing that you can do as a developer, the actionable thing that you need to be doing with Curator Connect is going to marketing and visibility, going to your Steamworks landing page, scrolling down to marketing tools and data, and clicking on Curator Connect, and then that will bring up this Curator Connect page that you can then click on the prompt connect with more curators or connect with curators, and that will allow you to like search out specific tags and genre tags and for that curators have games tied to or that they have that they're tied to via their games that they've reviewed, and you can start like looking through. You only have 100 total offers that you can send out. So via Curator Connect, this has nothing to do with if you're emailing codes, etc.
Yeah.
This is all through Steam. And when I say if I was to send Bumpy a Curator Connect invitation, he would then never actually see the code. I believe he would just accept the code invitation from me,
like
and then all of a sudden, and then it would appear as a downloadable option to install in his Steam. Steam. What am I trying to think of? Just the Steam,
library.
Just their Steam library. Yeah, thank you. I still don't know what word I was thinking of there, but that library works just fine. So Curator Connect, you're going to connect with more curators. You're going to search like for Cook Serve Delicious 3 simulation, for AI War 2 strategy, space, for telepath tactics, tactical, RPG, things of that sort. Manifold Garden. You would be looking at
that's a tough one.
That's a
call. Yeah.
A puzzle potentially, like top puzzle ones. It's an action game. No, like don't look up that kind of thing. Like make sure you can look up indie, that kind of stuff. Indie's not a bad one to look up because that lets you know that they're actually going to consider covering your game. There's a lot of curators, just like reviewers and content creators, that only cover AAA. Yeah. So it's nice to kind of isolate and see, okay, these people will actually consider covering it. And then when you looking through those searches you're doing, and based off their genre, kind of take a look at what they're actually posting in terms of their reviews, not just the descriptions they're posting, which are important as well. But are they covering games that you feel like you're in the same league with or in the same category as, et cetera, et cetera? And that gives you the best opportunity to like possibly get the go-ahead from them. So when you get those curators, I think now, let me see how they show up on, if I go to Cook Serve Delicious 3 on the store page, I think it actually only shows up now. It's been over the last 5 years. It's been kind of like curators were in, then they were completely out, and then they were like, no, we'll bring them back in a little bit. But if I like right now, if I'm not logged into the store page on Cook Serve Delicious 3, as in I'm not logged into my personal account, I don't see any trace of curators. I believe if I log in though, let me make sure if
I think it only shows the ones that you're following. I think that's what it is at this point.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Well, let me check it out. Let me verify.
Like
here.
I look at Cook Serve Delicious, I don't see anything. I look at Duskers. I did one on Duskers. It shows my own thing there. At least it did. I don't know if I'm technically logged in right now. Like I'm sometimes logged in on the browser, and then other times it doesn't work for me on the browser. I have to actually go to Steam itself.
So when I logged in on the browser and I scrolled down, now between more like this and customer reviews, it says what curators say. 119 curators have reviewed this product. Click here to see them. So it's curators at this point are not at the same level that they were in terms of exposure on Steam as they were a couple of years ago when they were like on the store page no matter what. Now you have to be viewing the store page either through your through the actual Steam app application or be logged in on the browser to see those kind of things. So again, it's not a thing that I think that you should be, it's the thing that we talked about before, like Tiny Disaster mentioned. It's not something that should be put ahead of anything else in the pre-release in terms of getting your game ready to go and development and all that kind of stuff. But when you have like, a month or two left, and you have a little bit of extra time, you've done your other, PR research, marketing research, know the individuals you're going to be emailing codes to and press releases to, and or, semi-personalized emails. This would be great for your channel because ABC, et cetera, that kind of stuff. Then Curator Connect is another option for you to try to get a little bit more visibility and exposure. And it is directly through Steam, which is always something that I encourage, right? If you can get that exposure directly through the platform itself, that's a really big deal. So, I think that's about it on the Curator Connect side. Just understand that there's pitfalls to it as well. A lot of the Curators Connects that will be reaching out to you via email if your game is kind of notable enough to be getting a lot of requests. Know that you'll be kind of having to vet through those or have someone vet through those and making sure that you're responding only to the ones that are legit and leaving the rest to the wayside. One thing to note is that if you do send out a code and the offer is not accepted, you can call back that offer and then resend out a new one. So you do only have 100 offers to send, but it doesn't mean that if you find your top 100 curators, send all the codes out, and only 40 of them take the codes, that you can't take those 60 back and retry again with the next, top 60 or, next top, get into the top 200 of who you'd want to send out to, right? Instead of just the top 100, because you're going to have people that the curators that just don't take the code. Don't accept it, and okay, I'll call that back via the Steamworks, process feature, and then find a new curator that is, up around the same level, or slightly below that I was looking for to send it to as well. And you can do that, repeat that process. I think I repeated that process with Cook Serve Delicious 3 like 6 times, if that makes sense. Like pre-release to 2 months after release, I went back to Curator Connect, every couple of weeks, right? Reclaim. And then resend them out. And that ended up, like you said, like we saw, or like I mentioned, there's a lot of curators that ended up weighing in on Cook Serve Delicious 3. And I'd say like 95, maybe 90% are all, recommended, positive, etc., that kind of thing. So that's another thing to look at, just like with reviewers and with content creators. If there's a lot of like thumbs down negatives, why send them?
Yeah, just go bash your game.
Why send them one just to get like a negative mark, even if it isn't like a legitimate negative mark, it still perceptually kind of comes off as that.
Some people just want to be, controversial or just nasty in general, and they're like, anything I get sent, I hate, even though they might really enjoy it. They just do it because that hurts you, right? Just like the people who are like, I don't recommend your game, and they play like 12,000 hours of the game. You're like, what?
Yeah, and if you have like high standards and they're unreasonably high, then good for you, but don't expect like a bunch of people to come running and passing along their content to you. That they're not going to give you access to their products. It doesn't mean just go and review everything really positively when you don't agree or don't see it as all like really good and stuff. But just understand what you're doing, and that you're dealing with people when you critique a product, right? When you put a product through the ringer. Right? Yeah, potentially, right? Like a lot of this stuff.
So yeah, it's what did you you can be, there could be problems and things that you don't particularly like, and you can offer maybe other alternatives or solutions. Be critical, but be helpful. Like, don't just criticize, be nasty and negative. Constructive criticism. That's what you should be doing if you're in this business. So
okay, so we're at about
launch visibility.
Yep, we're at 1:26 my time, 4:26 Eastern. So we have supposedly we end around 90 minutes, but we can push through a little bit longer as long as it's okay with you two to finish up these last few points.
Yeah, we started a little late, so another.
That's true. Object vehemently if you have any problems with that. Other than that, let's move on to this. I think 2 of these points will go super lightning fast, and the other 2 we can basically lightning round them a little bit and make them go faster. So the one I want to talk about real quick: launch visibility and update visibility rounds. This is the option above Curator Connect in Steamworks app landing page under marketing tools and data. If you click on that, we'll take you to a page that says marketing Cook Serve Delicious 3 or whatever your game name is, and then the app ID. And there's an overview, store and Steam platform traffic breakdown, UTM analytics, and widget. So these next 3 points are all kind of contained in the same area. So we'll move through them fairly quickly. On the overview, it gives you a launch visibility sort of prompt. It says newly released newly released titles first appear in a few different ways on the new on Steam page and in the new on Steam queue, along with applicable new lists on tag or genre pages. The goal is to reach an engaged group of customers and drive relevant traffic directly to your store page, while Steam gathers data on who your game should be recommended to. New releases that then can be recommended to specific users on the Steam homepage and can appear in popular lists if doing well. Your launch visibility round will run up to 30 days. And then it says underneath my particular one with Cook Serve Delicious 3, launch visibility finished, started October 14th, 2020, at 12:04 a.m., ended November 10th, 2020 at 3 p.m. So it was about 20, I guess that's probably fairly close to 30 days right there, October 14th to November 10th. I'm not sure the exact days, but fairly close. And that's just sort of to let you know that they're not just letting your game release into the wild with no support whatsoever. And that, to me, is definitely a step up from what like Switch is doing. Like, I feel like the Switch discoverability is absolute trash. And there's just like no way to find any games like without having to go through a ton of not necessarily shovelware, but a bunch of like kind of meh.
There's just no
stuff.
order though. Like it could be
Right.
a super top of the line AAA game followed by, we'll say, just a game that's like some sort of random asset flip to
They've gone
something
this-
that's medium to something that's good to something that's really really high rated again. You know.
They've gone like Steam Light in terms of how many games they're releasing on the platform, right? Like there's so many games, like not as many as Steam, but there's a lot. And there's no way to filter. There's no way to, filter a genre
unless
or
you're specifically
like
searking for a game. Yeah.
That's the only way, which is not to me a filter. It's just a very specific searching, right? Like, so and other than that, it's just like browsing through about 100 titles to maybe find one that you like. And you're not going to like want to do that after a while. The titles that you like are not going to be found after a while if you have to do that. Not only that, but someone else pointed out that like it's not optimized, that whole store, the eShop. When you scroll down, no matter how good your internet is, it still takes like a second to even go click over to the new game. It's
the Switch, right? It's a weak system, very weak.
But that's a poorly optimized situation that could be fixed even using the Switch. Like that's not the Switch's fault. It's the design of the eShop's fault that's causing that to hitch. Like, with like good internet, I think. So there was a huge discussion on the Nintendo Switch subreddit that didn't devolve into anything horrible, actually, that was talking about very specific user like things that they would like, user experience and user interface additions that they would like to see from Nintendo that that most people feel they never will, because it's like a very monolithic situation that Nintendo rolls out. Nintendo of America does not diverge from Nintendo of Japan's methods and applications very much in terms of their processes. So it's again diverge, and we're going to digress. But Steam offers you some stuff in terms of being able to be found that Switch just does not, and that's something to keep in mind when you're picking your platforms out and making sure that Steam is definitely first and foremost. And usually it will be if you're going like the PC development route anyway. So anyway, the launch visibility, it's there. It shouldn't be something that you're going, cool, I got launch visibility. I don't have to do anything else. I don't have to market anything. I don't have to do anything. I launch visibility. Look at all those people looking at my game. It's just, or my store page. Just don't think of it like that at all. It's just essentially Steam assuring you, Valve assuring you that you're not just going to be released into, a pit of despair, which it can end up being, if you don't carry things out properly with other aspects of your game.
They've apparently been adding some search features, because there's a genre now, price range, downloadable content. So
click on genre. What is it?
Action adventure. It's still not great, but it helps.
That's crazy. I think I read an article yesterday or 2 days ago that was griping about the lack of this. So I'm wondering if it was missed entirely, or if this was just added. Interesting though.
I'm like, I thought there was something, but it was very limited. But yeah, they've either added it or
they have different sections, like at the top of the eShop or the store page, like where they actually curate stuff. They're like, check out these cool survival games or these cool mystery games, that kind of stuff, where you're like, if we can get included in those, that's great, but they're one-offs, very, curated, kind of like article type stuff.
Yeah, you get like recent releases, and again, it's
kind of, and that's not even part of what I'm talking about is not part of the eShop, but rather the Switch, like the main, if you're back on the main Switch, there's certain advertisements on that.
If you do the
if you're like that bottom
news, maybe
news, and there's other, like right there, story driven.
Yeah,
is that what it says? I can't quite read it on the
driven games. Talk Like a Pirate Day, so on and so forth.
Yep. So, all right, running it back. The other thing on the overview that matters is the update visibility rounds. So these are things that you can push post launch if you have kind of some sort of content update, a patch release, or at least some sort of reasonable announcement to make that isn't complete bullcrap, if that makes sense.
Year anniversary is one.
That could be a year anniversary plus a sale. Yeah. Like that kind of thing is fine. Announcing for a new platform, like it's coming to consoles, that's great. Like other than that,
will that work though? Because that's taken away from Steam, kind of, you know.
They don't care.
They don't. Okay.
PC versus console is not really an issue. Everybody's gonna have. I mean, consoles face off against consoles way more, right, than PC faces against console. PC is going to be there no matter what. Whatever consoles do, PC will still be kind of a ubiquitous thing. Also, everybody needs a computer anyway, right? So it's just that kind of thing that you already own a console when you play PC games a lot of times, depending on how good your PC is, of course. But anyway, and sorry for calling it PC a console. That's not fair. Anyway, so update visibility rounds is the other thing we're talking about. You get 5 total. If your game is like an excellent games as a service game and has years and years ahead of it, like Tales of Majayal, then you could ask for more rounds from your Valve rep and be granted more of those things.
So it's 5 in a lifetime?
5 in a lifetime, but you can always ask for.
Okay.
If your lifetime is like a bunch of updates all the time in post launch, then you can ask for more. You obviously don't. You're going to be limited to some extent. They don't want you to be using these like every update or anything like that. But your major updates, things like that, like Tome has a major update release, then they would want to do it at that point. And then you get information, right? So we have all 5 rounds used for Cook Serve Delicious 3. We have no reason to call for more rounds at this point. We have nothing further to release for the game or announce for it at this point. So we've not asked for any more. And I have the data there to kind of pass around. So round 1, we did February 14th, 2020. That was, I believe...
it was still in early access, wasn't it?
Right. We did most of these in early access, I should point out. So you can do them as soon as you have launched in 1.0 or early access. As long as you have launched and have a price point on Steam, you can then start running your update visibility rounds. So February 14th to March 15th, 2020 was our first. We got 79,794 views on the essentially click-throughs from either the Steam console or the Steam application or the recently updated list that you could find on the front page of the Steam store. It's usually on the left-hand side in like the different navigate areas or pages you can navigate to. And so on that, we got 2.71% conversions to clicks. So what that is I don't know how they measure it, but 79,794 people viewed that we had a recent update, and 2,164 people clicked through to read more about it, to go to our page, etc. So maybe I don't know if that, I have to look at this thing. Update visibility rounds are intended as opportunity. It doesn't tell me exactly. I'd have to look into what that exactly means. If it's people looking at it from off of your store page and clicking through, if it's people on your store page clicking through to the actual announcement you made, because you usually have to tie that update visibility round to a Steam announcement post. It can't just be going to your store page, right? It has to be like update blah blah blah, or like the gigantic hero update, and there's a bunch of update information underneath it. That's like a Steam post that you've already released before, and then you could tie that to the update visibility round, and that's kind of what's seen. You can play around with that as well. Like, make sure that your announcement post has the right kind of graphics so that they pop up in like the recently updated section.
I'm trying to get the recently updated section.
Sometimes they don't have it like
it
readily
won't work
available
through my browser. Is the problem. I'm gonna have to capture my actual Steam. Give me a second.
And that's another thing that they're doing, is that just like Curator Connect, they're playing where they're showing certain things. Sometimes it's on the front page, sometimes it's being moved into different areas, and sometimes it's on the front page for some people and not others based on if they're logged in, like regionally, etc. So, but know that when you push those update rounds, that you're getting eyeballs on that update and the announcement post and your store page that you wouldn't be getting normally. So it's like this kind of this spike in views, and how well you can kind of convert is based on how people kind of interact with what you've put up there with your images, your descriptions, and of course the update itself.
Real quick, this is where the recently updated section would be. Anything in your library, and I think it's supposed to be stuff on your wish list too, but I'm not seeing anything in my wish list. It's just showing me library. So
all makes sense.
Yeah, like there was the Pinhead update for Dead by Daylight that kind of came through. I thought wish lists were included, but maybe they're not. So yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, you would think that the wish list, that would be very important to have that in the recently updated.
Yeah, I don't know if they do or not, but I also know that they play around with it differently in your where was that at in was that
actually scroll down on the main store page right above the new releases
in your Steam app itself and using
or if you're signed
I think there's and of course it will also pop up if you own the game. If you don't own the game, there are ways to get that out to you, but I'm not sure exactly how they're doing that. It switches, like I said, Valve switches up how they kind of give access to those recently released lists and all that. Sort of like it's always fluid. So going back to the marketing page, going from overview, and then there's like a few other tabs. That's the main two things on overview is the launch visibility and the update visibility rounds. And then if you click to the next tab under marketing, it says store and Steam platform traffic breakdown. This is pretty helpful. It's not like the most helpful thing, but it's not bad. It gives you a breakdown of where your views are coming from, mostly via the store page or within the Steam store. So like we have browse search results, direct navigation, bot traffic, Steam client library, search suggestions. These are all the places that like these impressions came from. And I have these like kind of graphs showing me, okay, you got 10,000 impressions from the browse search results, 26,000 from search suggestions. External website has its own thing. Wish list, bundle page. So all these things have like different breakdowns. It tells you impressions, owner impressions, percent of total impressions, click-through rate, visits, owner visits, percentage
so like
of total
every
visits.
Possible analytic you could think of, it breaks it down.
Well, not every, but if you're just a casual analytics person, there's everything you need and more in this, like for sure. And
can we lump the launch visibility, the update visibility, with the create a new event or announcement? That I think that kind of goes with this. That was one of your last points there.
The problem is that I'm like the way it's set out is I'm literally going point for point through the marketing thing, which is overview, store and Steam platform traffic breakdown is right next to that. It's all on the same page, and then that events thing is the last one.
Gotcha.
That's different. So my point is we don't have to go over this a lot. You can get impressions like up front, like let's say it's like most recent week, 9/15/2021 through 9/21/2021. So that was this last week going through yesterday. We had 198,002 impressions. Out of those impressions, 193,717 were non-owners of the game. And then a click-through rate of 5%. And then visits of 9,925 by non-owners, 8,681.
What exactly is a click-through rate, though? Like, what does that entail?
Impressions is that they saw is that they were in a section where they actually could see your game, right? Like I Cook Serve Delicious 3 on a list, right?
Wasn't necessarily they were on the store page. They just scrolled by and it was there. Okay, I got you. Right. I understand that.
Right. And then 5% of those click through, which I believe is pretty solid. Like it's usually in the 1 to 2, maybe 3% range kind of stuff. So if it's not like a super solid game, so
I got you.
That sells well. But that's those are things that I can look at now. I can go back and look at those numbers at early access release, at launch, 2 months ago, all that kind of stuff. Just not in the future. That's the only one. That's the only way it can't go. But everything else you got access to.
What good is that?
I know, exactly. So UTM Analytics is the next one. This is a feature that is in beta, they say, while we continue to improve the percentage of page visits tracked. UTM is a specific way of like tracking analytics. There is a YouTube video that can one of you post in the chat that points to that just goes that has it has a Valve kind of rep just go over all the specifics of that. You do not want me to be the one to go over that, so go have somebody else that has more understanding of that go over that for sure.
So essentially, it has what Google Analytics and whatever the UTM stands for.
So you have the store and Steam platform traffic breakdown, right? Which is its own thing. The UTM Analytics, which is its own thing, and then the Google Analytics, which is also its own thing. And Google Analytics, you actually have to have set up separate from Steam entirely via your own Google account, and then you can integrate it into Steam and take a look at it through that, so that you don't have to necessarily be outside of your Steamworks to look at those analytics while you're looking at your other analytics as well. The last thing that's mentioned on there is the Steam Store widget. If you could, good sir, bring up cookserdelicious.com. And
website?
Yep, because I just want to show off the Steam Store widget, which is essentially the widget is just like the Humble Store widget we were talking about earlier. You can take a little bit of like a little official prompt box from Steam itself and put it on your website. So instead of just having like a word of text that's like click, hyperlink, click through and buy our game on Steam, you can actually start the purchase process of buying the game on Steam through our website.
Okay.
So scroll down just a hair right there on the right there. Yep.
Gotcha.
So that's that widget right there on the right. You can see that it's like, that's the Steam gray, you know what I mean? Like the normal Steam dark gray background, and lets you add to cart, I believe, right there.
Yep.
And so that's that's just a smart move. Another smart incremental move. Not a ton of people are making like thousands of sales through their website versus Steam itself, but some are actually. Some still have communities that very much like Dark God and Tome, that a lot of the interactions are still through te4.org, right? The original Tome website. And with us, I think with Cooks Are Delicious 3, I think we're like, our website gets enough traffic to want to have that there. If you have like not that much website traffic, then maybe the widget is not that going to be that, beneficial to you, but never a bad idea to have, right? Always trying to sell to one more person. The widget makes sense to add to the website in that regard, right? So that's all I have on that marketing subsection. That's under, what was it? Marketing tools and data under marketing and visibility. So the last section we wanted to cover real quick today is the post manage events and announcements. This is something that we will want to discuss probably like more in full on a different date, but today we can kind of go over some of the categories and just sort of the higher. There we go. That's another thing that bothers me about Steam is that they have like 3 different backends in terms of logins. It's all one. It's not all one backend for the finances versus this versus you creating your store page versus this create new event or announcement thing. Your create new event or announcement thing is actually tied to your user account, whereas your developer account is tied to your Steamworks page. It's also tied, or Steamworks account. It's also tied to your financial account, which is not Steamworks. So sometimes it gets a little, like it took me a while to figure everything out. And to this day, I'm still finding new things. I was like, what? I didn't know that was a thing that I could access. So there's definitely, when we talk about this kind of stuff, I mean, it is a rabbit hole. There's a lot to it. So anyway, when you go to the bottom of that app page, app landing page, there's a create new event or announcement option. You can click that, and then you can actually click it. Once you get to that page, you'll have a prompt to create new event or announcement, and that will take you to the options that you have. These options include, they ask you right off the bat, create new event or announcement. Select the primary topic of your event or announcement. The category you select should generally match what you describe in the title of your event and in the artwork for your cover image. So what is your event or announcement about? And here are your options. Right now they have at the top Halloween themed events. So they have things that they're now preparing Which again, if you see Steam wanting to highlight something and you can make that work, you should really try to do that, right? That's going to offer extra visibility. Like the Steam Next Fests are in right now, right? Like even if there's a lot of people that submit for them and stuff, Valve is putting in a lot of muscle behind the exposure of those things. So like just like that, if you have if you see like a create new event or announcement and you go, oh, I do have a Halloween themed event that I could tie in here. It's the options are new DLC or addition to the game, permanent Halloween theme extensions to your game, or an in-game event. Announce the time period for players to participate in some in-game activity to gain rewards or just be together. Bumpy, I'm sure you know both of those options will be used by a variety of games during the Halloween period. We've seen them before, like Dead by Daylight Hunt, all that kind of stuff. So other than that, you have the more general categories. A game update. It let players know about updates, big or small, new content, changes in functionality, or bug fixes. Game or content release beta testing. Announcing that the time that your game beta DLC or special season will release. One thing to point out here is depending on what you pick, how they promote it will be different, right? Like a game update will probably be pushed more so to your current owners than it will be pointed to new players. Not that you can't do that. Via the update rounds that we talked about earlier, using those update rounds and such. But doing like a bigger in-game event, like the Halloween theme type of thing, is going to probably get you more exposure than just a standard game update like announcement to new players, especially, or to people who don't own your game already. So anyway, moving on down the list because we're basically out of time or past time. Game or content release beta testing, announcing at that time that your game beta DLC or special season will release. A discount, promotion, or free trial is an option. So for discounts, trials, demos, or promotions on your game, DLC, or in-game content, announce a game discount to non-owners or let existing players know about in-game discounting. An in-game event, announce the time period for players to participate in some in-game activity to gain rewards or just to be together. A challenge or contest, challenge your players to complete particular goals or enter into a contest. Live stream / broadcast, encourage players to watch your game, such as a tournament, dev, live stream, or a famous streamer playing the game on the store page. Announcement, news. This is the standard one that you would use a lot. Tell your audience something newsworthy, hit an awesome milestone, working on something interesting, etc. A chat or AMA session. So Steam offers their own version of like the Reddit Ask Me Anythings that you can do, or you can do like direct, like just real-time chats. Invite your fans to hang out, chat, meet the devs, ask questions, etc. Attending an expo, meetup. Wait, two more. Sorry. Attending an expo, meetup, or convention. Invite your fans to hang out in real life, or let them know if you're heading to somewhere neat. And then cross promotion is the last one. Use this category to talk about another game you are releasing or another platform your game is coming to. This is the only category you should use if your post is about a different game, platform, or store. So those are the options. These options didn't exist as of like maybe 18 months ago or 24 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Before it was just all just do this Steam announcement and we'll find and it kind of will figure itself out. So I will give Valve this. They've spent a lot of time on this section in particular. And each of these options that you pick give you different kinds of visibility that should benefit the option, more or less, right? Like it should be pointing, if it's an in-game thing or if it's for the current community, it should be pointing that, in places where owners of your game are going to see it. Versus if it's something that it's like, oh, this is a big deal that we want to share with everybody, then it goes beyond that and gets it to places, hopefully where people who have wishlisted the game, as Bumpy points out, might be able to get, information on that based on the post that you pick. And like I said, at some point, Tiny Disaster and Bumpy, we should go through some of these, actually click on them and see what they entail. But that's not today. That's another day, and that would be a full 90 minutes just to go through, I think, all of these individually.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff on the back end of Steam for developers to use or get lost in, apparently.
And that was me, and that was kind of me going, "Oh crap, we have so much to get through the day," and we pulled Tiny Disaster. I think pulled like 6 points off of our original notes, like at least. So there's still so much more to discuss. There's so much more to get to, but only have so much time, right? Like in a limited amount of time, we wanted to get enough information. Also, past 90 minutes, 2 hours, we're all going to start glazing over. I don't care if you're watching or if you're talking about this kind of stuff. Like it's good to take a break after about 90 minutes, 2 hours, because there's so much information to try to take in, and we don't want to go on and on and on and have things just not stick. So this is something that we'll probably revisit again down the line. I'm not sure exactly when we'll do it. We have a schedule lined up now. Woohoo! And we have at least like 5 to 6 weeks of episodes planned ahead at this point, but we'll come back to this at some, or come back to Steamworks, Steam backend preparation in general at some point, and go over some of the points that we haven't yet.
Yeah. All right. Well, I know a Tiny Disaster wasn't feeling well most of this last week that we had off. So, are you feeling better at all? You've been a bit quieter, but I know that's
all the way
a lot of
there,
complicated stuff.
Well, there's been so much information this time.
Yeah.
I think this has been the chat where it's been the most stuff where I had no idea about it going into it. So, super interesting.
Yeah, this is all stuff that Cup specifically knows more than, I mean, I'm aware of a few things, but almost none of it I'm actually privy to or have seen any of that. So,
this was this is a category which fits directly into what this has been my job the last 10 years, right? So like very, very very much in my
wheelhouse.
In my wheelhouse, yeah, for sure. I was gonna say ballpark. I'm like, what is the dang thing that I'm looking for in wheelhouse was much better. Thank you, Bumpy.
It all works out. All right, so next week, the state of indie games in 2021. That is what our topic is going to be, and hopefully we'll have a whole.
I'll have a lot more opinions on.
I say hopefully have a bunch of good stuff to throw out there, and I definitely think that's something we all at least have a bit more understanding of. So
we'll panel it and roundtable it more than today for sure. Which was way more.
A bit more of a seminar on this week. So anyway,
well, folks, it was good to have you guys as audience anyway to take it in and stuff. So
I learned a ton.
All right, folks, that's going to pretty much do it for our time. Like I said, we went a little bit over what we were planning for, but again, it's all important stuff that we wanted to get in. So hopefully you guys had some fun and you enjoyed it. Make sure you check out our website if you want some help with your indie developed games, getting it out to the press, or just help in general with Steam Store optimization. Like all the stuff we talk about, we do these things, and it's part of indie development, but it's something that maybe you don't know how to do, or you struggle with, or it's just too chaotic and you want to focus on making games. That's where we come in. That's kind of our thing. So what is the website? Cup, putting you on the spot. Go.
theindiebros.com. That is theindiebros.com.
Yep, there you have it. Anyway, folks, until next week, I have been your host, Bumpy McSquigums, joined by Cupogoodness and a Tiny Disaster. And next week, we talk about the state of indie games in 2021. Bye.
See you next time.